All right, welcome in. Moose at the box. LSU loses it 4-3. Their season ends in Chapel Hill. North Carolina advances to host a super regional where they will play West Virginia. LSU ends the season 43-23. Made a hell of a run down the stretch, obviously, to get to this point. Fell into the losers bracket, battled back. We have a lot of clutch performances that we'll talk about. There's a lot of awesome things that happened the last month and a half of this season that really showed who this team was. But in the end, there's also a lot that you can look back on from this season and say, what if? And as great as LSU was late in this year at exercising the demons from earlier, that is a very fitting end to this season where they are just punched in the gut one more time. I mean, it's not to harp on that because LSU, as we said, really exercised those demons. They learned how to finish games. They learned how to win in tight spots. They learned how to do a lot of things great, but that is a game that you've seen from them often. And it stings right now for sure for them, for everyone. They should be really proud of how they played tonight because the deck was stacked against them for sure in that game. And I mean, Will Helmers, y'all, we'll get to Will Helmers, and it's a shame they couldn't finish it off for him. But I mean, what a last moment in an LSU career, in an LSU uniform, I should say, for that guy. He was awesome, and he was a huge part of what hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull up some stats here, and it's just not really working like I need it to. It's annoying. It's really annoying, as a matter of fact. 1 second. Y'all smash the like button if you haven't already. Get subscribed. I don't really know why this isn't working. Okay, there we go. All right. Sorry about that. So that's a really tough one, but they played some great baseball down the stretch to get to that point, and unfortunately, the season ends for them with another gut punch. I mean, we go through it a little bit. You knew going in, you did not have the advantage on the mound, and that was North Carolina was able to bring back their ace to start, and you actually did really well against Jason DeCarey. You got the pitch count up. You got him for let's see. I mean, he ended up giving up all three, didn't he? I'm sorry, no, you got him for two. That's right. Jones hit the homer off of Mateus. But you knew they had their horses like Mateus, like Pence, like Poston, like Percival could even come back. Pageant, like they had those guys stacked up, and that was one thing we talked about with this North Carolina team going into this weekend, really into this regional, I should say, that they were a really deep team in the bullpen. That was one of the strengths of their team, and you needed to be able to go 2-0. Ultimately, you couldn't. You battled back through the losers bracket, got to this point, and you led for the majority of the game. So if you go through it in the first, you start out with Sam Dutton. He's going to be on not a pitch count, a hitter count of 3, which I'll be quite honest, I don't love. I think that puts unneeded pressure on Sam Dutton, where it's just like, hey, man, you got these 3 hitters and that's it. And I don't love that. I think that's very akin to a player, not knowing if he's going to be in the lineup or, every day. And or if I make one mistake, I'm out. So, I mean, I don't love that move by Jay Johnson at all. I just don't. I think that's tinkering. I think that's over managing. I think you need guys who can go out there and get you as many outs as possible in this. They were looking for it from Dutton. Now, that being said, Dutton didn't execute. That's the other part. Like, I like Sam Dutton in that spot because he throws strikes. We've gone through it plenty of times with Sam Dutton. It is 65% strikes for his career. 65% strikes. You do that, you can pitch for me. The problem is it's not overpowering stuff, and the quality of strike is always the caveat that we talk about with Sam Dutton. And unfortunately, the quality of strike from him today wasn't good enough, and it resulted in 3 straight singles. And then because you were limiting him to 3 hitters, you go to the bullpen, you get Javen Coleman. He comes in a no-win spot. Like, I loathe having to bring somebody in with the bases loaded and nobody out, because there's just very few people on this planet that can get out of that spot. And Coleman has had problems throwing strikes. That's what we've talked about all year with him. When he's in the zone, he's great. When he's not, he's bad. And for the majority of the year, he'd been out of the zone. Command was a really big problem for him. And he walks the first hitter on 4 pitches, and none of them were close. Now, that brings a run across. What was huge, and this is where you credit Javen Coleman, he did a great job at limiting the damage. He got the double Osuna to hit into the double play, and you, of course, that cost you a run, but you'll trade the run for the out there, obviously, in that spot in the first, and then you get the fly out to end it, and you're only down 2-0. And what was massive was LSU was able to respond. And that's something where you did see development with this offense down the back half. The response, the immediate response, and you saw it there. Tommy White singles to lead off the inning. Eventually he comes around, but it's the White single. Jones is hit, and then Pearson, after a wild pitch, advances the runners. Pearson, not trying to do too much, just grounds out to second base, gets you the run, and you're right back in it. Jake Brown hits the home run in the bottom of the second to give you a 2-1 lead. But the story is in the second inning when they go to Will Helmers. And he gets you, I mean, think about the spot they put Will Helmers in that game. You have runners at first and second, 1 out, and Vance Honeycutt at the plate. And Will Helmers mows him down. Like, that set the tone for Helmers' outing. It was so awesome to watch him do that. The fastball he threw that ran about 6 inches back across the plate to strike out. I mean, it starts in the left-handed batter's box, runs, but it's a filthy, just sinker, 2-seamer, arm side run. One of the best pitches you've seen Will Helmers throw in his entire career. It freezes Vance Honeycutt. After the walk to Cook, he gets Harbor to fly out, and that set the tone. Then Brown homers, gives you the lead. You throw Helmers back out there, pitches around to leadoff single, and then Jared Jones homers off of Mateus, and LSU has a 3-2 lead at that point, and they would hold that all the way until the 9th inning. And that's a large credit to Will Helmers. And this is where we have that conversation. Y'all, Jay Johnson said on the broadcast when they interviewed him, they were asking him, you need guys to give you something extra. And he said, Will's already done that. Will's already gone further than we had intended for him to go. And it's just, when you look at a guy like Will Helmers and you look at the career that he had at LSU, where, I mean, Paul Mainieri played that kid at third base inexplicably in the opener in 2021. And it was just a really rough day because you had a pitcher at third base. And, that's the first time any of us saw Will Helmers in his LSU career. And then he is a midweek starter for you. And then, he kind of fades into the background, quite honestly, just because the stuff isn't on par with a guy who can get outs in the SEC for the majority of his career. But through all that, he's a Louisiana kid. He died to wear the jersey on his chest, and he leads the hype huddle. He's a great teammate, all of those things. That's why we love sports. We love sports for moments like Will Helmers gave you today, where that guy, who you've heard the story plenty of times this year, had to pitch his way onto the team. He was not guaranteed a spot. And for him to go out there and have the best outing of his career and keep LSU in, give you that standout step-up performance that you need if you're going to come through the losers bracket, that was awesome. It's why we love sports, and it sucks. It sucks that they could not close it out with a win, because if they did, Will Helmers had firmly just, permanently etched his name into LSU postseason lore with that outing. But unfortunately, you didn't come through with the win, and that's a bummer. And it's because, and you tip your hat to North Carolina, because they were able to go to Mateus, and after he hit Braswell in that third inning, so they bring him in, he gives up the homer to Jones, the double to Pearson, hits Braswell, and then he retired the next 11 guys he faced to end his day. And it kept North Carolina obviously in the game. even though they weren't able to figure out Will Helmers, but he kept it at bay. And I'll be honest, I was surprised when they lifted him. Like I know what the pitch count was. I get it. But he had retired 11 straight. And you lift him, and Pence comes in, ends up retiring 2 more, so that's 13 straight that North Carolina retired. Ultimately, they would retire 15 straight batters before Jared Jones drew a walk in the 8th inning, and then Pearson reached on an error, but you just couldn't get the run across. Now you go to the 9th, and you go to Gage Jump, and I see a lot of you asking or saying they pulled Ack too early. I don't really have a good counter to that, other than their plan was to go to Jump and let him finish the game. I don't know if I'd classify it as too early, but they definitely could have left Jump. Definitely could have left Ackenhausen in. I was surprised they went to Jump. I didn't think that was I didn't think that was something Jay would really do unless they absolutely had to, and I don't think they absolutely had to. That's kind of where I might have a little bit of an issue with that, is I don't think they absolutely had to. Like, if Gage Jump, if Will Helmers wouldn't have given you what he did, and you needed Jump, because you had used Gidry, you had used Dak, then I get it. But I don't think you had to do that. That was a choice. And look, it's hard to fault that choice. Gage Jump has arguably been your best pitcher down the stretch. But I just didn't think you needed to do that. And let me say this. I thought Gage Jump pitched well. I really did. Like, I thought Gage Jump, like Gallagher hit the double, but it was a slider that was down and away. Like, maybe it caught a little too much of the plate, but it wasn't up. It was down. Gallagher pulled it and got it down. I mean, like, it's arguably probably why it fell in. It was because it was down and away, and he pulled the ball. Like, he didn't have a lot on it, but he had enough to get it over Tommy's head, and he gets on. I thought it was a great heads-up play by White, obviously at third base, to not allow the run. I mean, to let the bunt go foul, and you end up getting the out there. You walk Vance Honeycutt, but then you get the line out to second base, and then, I mean, I'm sorry, you get the strikeout of Madera, and then Wilkerson hit a jam shot single in the left. That sucks. It was a lot of fastball from Jump. I'll say I didn't love that from Nate Yeske. It was very reminiscent of what they did with Gavin Guidry last night, and I think that's honestly what hurt Gage Jump. What caused him to struggle getting outs was they just went fastball. I mean, the breaking stuff for him has been great. Now, it all plays off his fastball, but, they did that number again, and it was a great pitch. Like, he jammed Wilkerson. If Wilkerson has a wooden bat, it's in pieces. There's a freaking aluminum bat jam shot single that tied the game. You credit Jump. He would get, the walk, a line out, and then a ground out to get out of it, and keep you there. You go to the bottom half, Travinsky singles, you pinch run Bingham, but you have a fly out and a strikeout, and you're forced to extra innings. And then in extra innings, Jake Brown has to make that catch. There's no excuse. He took his eye off the ball. I mean, it's a freshman mistake. I get it. But you have to make that play, and and he knows that, and I think Jake Brown would tell you that. Like that. That's why I can confidently say that he has to make the play, because I believe he would sit here and tell you, I need to make that play, and he does. And he took his eye off the ball. He made a great play to track it and get to it, but you have to make that play, and it's an error, and it put a runner in scoring position. And we talk often about the game knowing who needs to be rewarded, and you don't deserve to be rewarded when you don't make that play, and LSU wasn't. And Madera had a great at-bat against Gage Jump, fouled off pitches after pitch after pitch after pitch, and ultimately singles up the middle. You had a big hole at the middle. LSU had some type of shift on, and the go-ahead hit scores. But you should have been out of the inning there with Jump. With Brown making that catch. Then you go to the bottom of the 10th, and look, you couldn't have asked to be in a better position trailing. You had 1, 2, and 3 in your lineup due up. And the at-bat from Tommy White is bitterly disappointing and quite honestly unacceptable. For him to chase that high fastball up and out of the zone and fly out in that spot when a base runner is really all you need right there, that's a really disappointing way for Tommy White's career to end. But, and I will tell you, it's an unacceptable at bat. It is an unacceptable at bat. But it is also who Tommy White is and who he's been all year and all time at LSU, and you live with it, and it stinks. But you live with it. And no, it's not what you needed in that moment, and yes, he should have been better, but, wasn't. Stephen Milam flies out. Jared Jones, just a great at bat from Jones. He had an awesome regional, y'all. Jared Jones, if that's the last time we see him in a Tiger uniform, he was absolutely incredible at the plate. Just drew so many, just walk after walk after walk. It was the perfect crescendo really for him when we talk so much about cutting down chase, improving pitch recognition, and he did that, and it was awesome. And it really came to fruition for him this weekend. You wish he could just kind of continue playing this season. But he draws that walk, gets you the tie and run, and Josh Pearson flies out to right, and that ends the game and your season. So it's a bitter pill to swallow because, like we said right off the top, it's a game that we've seen over and over and over again from this team this year. And it looked like they had really exercised those demons. And they did. That's how they made the run. But LSU, you were 3 outs away. Really, if you really want to get, you were 2 outs away if you want to get technical on it, and you just couldn't close it out. And it's a bitter way for the season to end, but it also makes a lot of sense that that's the way that this season ended. And this is kind of the cold hard truth here with 2024. LSU made a really nice run to get to this point. They were playing elimination games basically the entire back half of their season. And you started 3-12. You won 4 of your last 5 series. You went all the way to the SEC Tournament Championship. Played your way into a 2 seed. Got yourself to the regional, fell into the loser's bracket, but fought back and got yourself to a Game 7. It's a really, really great run. It was a really good coaching job by Jay Johnson to keep this team together and keep the positivity, because there was not a lot to be positive about when they were 3-12. And all of that is true. The other thing that is true is you will look at 2024 as a season of missed opportunity, because that's also what it was. Both of those things can be true, and both of those things are true, and it's what makes it bitter. It's what makes it disappointing. Y'all, if LSU wins the Florida game, if LSU wins that Friday night game against Alabama, if LSU wins the Saturday game against Vanderbilt, they're playing at home in the postseason, and they probably win it in 3 games and you're moving on. You didn't. It took you a while to finish. It took you a while to learn how to win. You had guys in new roles, and because of that, you missed a lot of opportunity. But what you also did is you went on the run, and guys learned, and guys improved, and LSU should be a better team for that in the future. You've got a lot to replace, and we will talk a lot about that in the coming days. We are not done with content, so don't go anywhere. We will definitely finish out this week, and then I will probably take some time off. But we will be back for the draft because there's a lot to cover there. The story of 2024 is over, but the story of 2025 is going to be a really interesting one. But I'll take some questions here, but that's what I'll leave 2024 at for now, is they came together and they deserve credit for that. And you had a lot of guys step up, and you had a lot of guys grow into their roles. And I thought Jay, he wasn't perfect every time out. We came here and criticized the first game against North Carolina. But for him to be able to keep that team together with all the issues that they were having on the field, off the field, and there were off the field issues, it's got to be one of the best coaching jobs of his career. And eventually he will answer that question because he will be asked. He might be being asked that right now in postgame. And I'm very curious to hear his answer. And his answer will probably change over time. But ultimately, you can't tell the story of this season without talking about the missed opportunities. And that's part of it too. And that is a large reason of why you were in the spot you were in at the end of this year. Any questions that y'all might have? Kevin says, talk about how the freshmen grew up. Yeah, man. I mean, they were awesome. I mean, how about Ashton Larson? I think if you're talking about a freshman growing up, you really highlight Stephen Milam and Jake Brown, because Ashton Larson, the thing with Larson, from the moment they put him in, he produced. And that's like, that's even in early season when he was just a pinch hitter. Like, remember, we were sitting here asking for more Ashton Larson playing time because the kid was hitting like 550. And it's like every time you put him in there, he hits. Let him start. And they finally did. And when they did it full time, he just kind of produced. And he did. Go 13 Saints says he fell off hard in the postseason. And he did. He fell off a little bit. And that stinks. But that's going to happen for freshmen. You don't make the run you made without Ashton Larson. When you talk about freshmen developing and growing up, I point to three guys: Stephen Milam, Jake Brown, and Cade Anderson. Like, those are the three. And you saw that from Anderson specifically this past weekend in the regional and in the SEC tournament. When he came in and got those 3 outs against South Carolina, that was huge. And then whenever he came in twice on Sunday and shoved the way he did, you saw him really grow. And my Milam produced from the moment you put him in, but he hit that snag a little bit early in conference play like you would expect. And then gangbusters down the stretch was Milam. He was awesome. And then Jake Brown, same thing, man. Jake Brown, for him to be in and out of the lineup the way that he was and the way it ended with that fly ball sucks. Like, that error sucks that's the last thing you're going to remember from him this season. But the clutch homer he had to tie the game. He had a clutch homer in Hoover. He really developed. When they stuck with him and put him out there, you saw him really come into his own, and that's going to be a really bright spot for you next season going forward. So, yeah, the freshmen were awesome. They developed, and that's why, like, even at the time when LSU was 3-12, and it's like, man, you even want them to go to the postseason? Yeah, you do. Because you want those guys to get that taste, that experience. Like, you don't think that error is going to just make Jake Brown work even harder going forward? Like, you want that going forward. So, absolutely, man. They were awesome. Let me backtrack here to a few of these questions. Let's see. Anthony Berry, hey, Musa, who will be our rotation next year on the mound? Too early to answer that question. I think Cam Johnson absolutely gets every opportunity to play his way into a starting role for LSU. Chase Shores will be healthy. He will absolutely be in the starting rotation. But then you got guys like Jaden Newt, potentially there, Cade Anderson. Like, it's a little too early to answer that. We can get a better feel of that with the draft, because if Griffin Herring's a draft-eligible sophomore, but if he comes back, he's absolutely got a chance to be a starting pitcher for LSU. So you have a lot of options there. We can have that conversation a little bit more as we go throughout the week and towards draft time and things of that nature. Kobe says, is Chase Shores the Friday guy next year? I would think he's the leader in the clubhouse for that right now. But the thing you're going to have to keep in mind with Chase Shores is it's going to be a long layoff, and it might take some time for him to, like it did Gage Jump, like it did Thatcher Hurd in 2023, it might take some time for him to really come into his own. But when he does, he's going to be really, really, really good. I don't know why this will not freaking... Matt C says, isn't Jump back next year? Gage Jump is draft eligible. And he will probably not be back. Like, Gage Jump's going to be probably a top 50 guy in the draft, and he should go. Sambo, any chance Hurd comes back? I don't think so. No, I don't. I think Hurd is going to. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to have to replace a lot. but you have a really talented recruiting class coming in that you're gonna have to battle the draft for, and you're not gonna win a lot of those battles. Let's just be honest. But you got a lot out of some guys who can uh who can hopefully improve. Draft eligible guy. Who asked that? I lost it. This thing's just not working. The way I want it to. It is really lagging. Not the internet, not the video this time, but everything else really lagging. Lou, who's one draft eligible player you think comes back? Probably a guy like Kling, unless he wants to portal, but I don't really know if he wants to do that. Guidry is another one that I would say is somebody. I'll give you the one I think really is Michael Braswell. I think Braswell could absolutely be back. And he's kind of even said that he would love to come back, and that'd be awesome if you could get another year out of him, because he really improved a lot too, y'all. I mean, obviously what he did from a hitting standpoint, but the tough errors that kid had earlier in the year, the defense he played down the back half was that of an SEC shortstop, and it was awesome to see. So, I mean, that's actually my answer. If I'm going to give you an answer of draft eligible guy I think returns is right now, just off the top of my head and the immediacy without any research or asking around or anything, I'll say Michael Braswell, which I think everybody would be good with, right? I mean, I know I'd be good with that. I know Jay would be good with that. So, and look, they're going to have to go into the portal hard. Like that, this is going to be a really interesting portal cycle to watch for LSU, because who's going to play third base? If Jared Jones leaves, which I expect him to, who's going to play first? You have guys potentially to step into those roles in the weekend in the rotation, but then you got to replace guys in the bullpen. So, you have to go there. Kobe says, expect any staff changes. I never say never, but I think, and again, this is really raw and just really in the immediacy. I mean, their season just ended. Never say never. You've seen staff changes every year under Jay Johnson for a variety of different reasons, but I think with the way they improved down the stretch, you might not see any this year, but we'll see. Never say never. Like, everyone wanted Yeski's head on a plate midseason. The pitching got way better, did they not? Like, you saw development from some guys. And it was ultimately the reason you got to where you did. So never say never. You've seen it every year under Jay. But, we'll just we'll have to wait and see on that. So but you're replacing a lot. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on, because you just are. You got anything else? Any other questions? Because if not, tomorrow will be a lot more of like a post-mortem on the year. We'll talk plenty about the high. We'll talk more about the highs and the lows. What was ultimately the undoing of the team, things of that nature. So appreciate everybody all year. Again, like I said, we got more to come, so y'all don't really go anywhere. Fire 3449, does Brady Neal return? I know they want Brady Neal to return. I can tell you Jay Johnson is extremely high on that kid, and is just a massive, massive fan of Brady Neal. So the only reason I think he should be back. I think Jay's going to do everything in his power to keep him here, and he's not draft eligible, so you know what I mean by that. But all right. Again, thanks for listening all year. Again, we're not done, so y'all stay tuned. Like, share, get subscribed, all those things, and we will pop in from time to time. We got transfer portal to cover, we got draft to cover, and we got to finish covering this season. So appreciate everybody for listening. It wasn't always fun, but we did have a lot of fun down the stretch here, and they played great. They played great down the stretch. So appreciate y'all, and be here next time for more on Musso at the Box.